That's how we do it. All right. Okay, everyone.
Okay, you can go. It's not going to get any better.
All right. Well, everyone, thank you for joining us on how to leverage energy scores to get higher appraisal values. I wish everyone could be here to hear this because it's been a passion of mine for the last 3 years. Want to say thank you to Eva for the invitation. It stemmed from working with Dennis, who introduced me to Gene and Stephen Myers over at Thrive at the International Builders Show this last February. They introduced me over to Aaron Smith, who said, I'd like you to come and help educate our members on the success that we've been having. And so I just want to say thank you to everyone and all of you guys' amazing hard work and the homes that you're building. It's been a journey for myself, and I want to thank my esteemed panel members here. Do a quick introduction. Go ahead, Ryan.
Sure. Yeah, my name is Ryan Riveros. I'm the Chief Executive Officer for Accelerated Appraisal Management Company. We are a national license in all 50 states, AMC. I also sit on the board of directors for ResNet to help push forward energy efficient homes and more importantly, energy efficient appraisals.
Fantastic. Dennis?
I'm Dennis Webb, Vice President of Fulton Homes, strong energy advocate and stronger appraisal advocate.
I'm Jim Hunter. I'm the National Builder Services Manager for AccuSure Mortgage, formerly known as FBC Mortgage. We rebranded in July, and we are a top 15 national mortgage lender who focuses primarily our business on doing business with builders. About 80% of our business is builder driven. And so thank you for having us.
Absolutely. So the reason why I chose these three as my panelists is because you have to have essentially the builder building energy efficient homes and getting her scores. We have to have the lender who's able to essentially order the green appraisals and bundle and package these loans. Now, please keep in mind, I want to make sure everyone's very clear at the beginning. This is not EEMs, energy efficient mortgages or greenback mortgage securities. These are on just regular conventional loans. So there's no extra hoops on that. That's very important because immediately when we start talking about this, everyone's like, oh yeah, we're doing greenback mortgage securities or we're doing EEMs. And those are additional extra steps that builders have to make that we are, moving those obstacles, removing those obstacles, which is very important. And then of course, obviously the appraisal side. When I first started with this project, I was in lending, and I met with a green builder who'd built over 600 energy efficient homes. And I said, what are some of your pain points? And it was like, well, I'm not getting the appraisal values. And I said, well, that doesn't make any sense. And he explained to me the HERS scores, and his personal home was a -17. So it had solar, it was very well built. I mean, he built it himself for the long term. And his appraisal came in $120,000 light. And I was like, that's amazing, that's a lot. That's really light. Got an educated appraiser who wrote the USPAP Advisory Council number 6, and she came out and did the appraisal, and it came in actually a little bit higher than the sales price. So having an educated appraiser is the big difference. So that's why we have this panel here, because it takes all three in order for this to work. If you're missing any one of these components, it's obviously not going to be successful. So introduction, the overarching national economy problem that we're having right now is affordability. Very clear. Yesterday, as you know, the Fed dropped the Fed fund rate a 1/4 point. And just like last year, if you look historically, last year they dropped it a 1/4 point and rates went up. We had 2 rate changes yesterday in the negative. It went higher. So all of us have felt that pain this last summer and over the last 2 years. So our goal is to help make homes more affordable. Over the last summer, you guys have all seen these headlines. New home sales crashed 13.7% as mortgage rates near 7%. Luckily, we are getting some help there over the last month. Rates have come down, and we're hoping that over the next year, rates will continue to decline, but we have to be more aggressive on our side to help you guys get higher values over 80% of home builders right now are offering seller concessions to combat higher interest rates to be able to make homes more affordable. So this is the big game changer that we worked on at the very, very beginning, and that was in regards to the seller guidelines with Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae. We approached both of them. Fannie Mae had taken the direction of Energy Star. Freddie Mac had taken to side with her scores. If you go to 5601.4 Freddie Mac seller guidelines, this is directly off of their website. And so you can see they mention and talk about her scores. Basically, this is what we're going off of. From a lending perspective, it's easier to explain to underwriters a HER score because Energy Star is pass-fail. You can be at a HER score 60 or net zero, and you're still Energy Star, essentially, right? It's hard to quantify that. It's harder for people to understand that in our industry. So with HER scores, obviously the lower the score, the more energy efficient, the more utility cost savings, and that's how we're able to derive the values, and we'll have Ryan talk about that here in a second, but that was a big obstacle that we had to overcome, is getting this right here with Freddie Mac approved, and that's what now I thought my job had been done. Like I was like, okay, we got this, we're good. And then the builders were like, yeah, except for none of the appraisers understand that. Like, what does that mean? So I started the Home Building Energy Efficiency Academy. I'm the owner. We educate appraisers. So Ryan, can you tell us a little bit about how that has transpired? Because Ryan, there's over 300 AMCs, appraisal management companies nationwide. Most of them, the CEOs, are not appraisers. That was the big, big problem for myself. Ryan, you are an appraiser, so if you could touch on that.
Sure, yeah, so I got in the appraisal industry back in 2005, created Accelerated AMC in 2014, so we've been doing it for 11 years now. When Steve came to me and talked to me about this, I've always kind of thought outside the box from, I suppose, the traditional appraiser. And so when he introduced that to me, I looked at it, I studied it, and figured if it was, like a technical term, USPAP compliant, and if the lenders recognized it, and as I discovered, they did. And so I personally had taken the class from Thabia to understand what that process looks like, but not only I've taken classes that talked about like what is green. There's many courses out there as what is green, but nobody tells us what the how is, like how do we make adjustments for it. And so learning how to make the adjustment, it made sense, and it was supported not only by USPAP, but supported by Freddie Mac. And so I'd say that probably the biggest challenge that I've run into training a national panel, so we're licensed in all 50 states, is appraisers, they're taught one way, and they've just kind of stuck with that for the last 30 years. So introducing this type of adjustment has been a bit of a challenge, but because of the team that I've built at Accelerated, who've all been trained and educated on this process, we're able to walk the appraisers through this process, teaching them how to make these mathematical adjustments, what the HERS report is, what energy efficiency is, what is an annual energy savings, and why it matters. And after holding their hand for a little while, like we literally are on the phone daily, not only with the appraisals that get these energy efficiency adjustments, but even with the training. Like it's a lot to take on, but once they get it and once they see it, they're like, yeah, this makes sense. Okay, this USPAP supports this. Okay, yeah, Freddie Mac has language about this. They've been more open to it, but the climb has been big, but we are now, nationwide with a panel of some green trained appraisers in every single state, and it's been a great ride.
It's very interesting because during COVID, with everything that was happening in the lending industry, appraisers weren't allowed to go in the homes, and so they kind of switched over to a more ACE PDR where they're doing it online. It's a desk appraisal, and a lot more appraisal waivers were being issued. There used to be over 75,000 appraisers 3.5 years ago. We're now under 40,000. So as we're talking about, we need more raters. The appraisers are 1 foot out the door. A lot of them are retiring. It's not an easy it's not easy to become an appraiser. You have to do an apprenticeship, you have to have a 4-year degree, and you take a lot of risks. If you get dragged into court, you can be held liable. So it's not good. And so with these appraisers, a lot of them, they don't, even when I was offering this education to them and saying, hey, this is the direction that the industry is going, they didn't want to hear anything about it. They were just like, show me the business. If you can give me the business, then I'll go ahead and take the course. And I was like, that seems pretty backwards. We ended up just giving away the information for free. Just help the builders. That was the #1 goal. When I set out to do this, the builder would not pay anything, $0. Like, we did not want to pass any extra costs, make you guys have to do anything extra than what you're already doing. So it was 0. So then we went to the lenders. Lenders don't have to do anything different. You know, it's already been in place. In the drop-down menu on their appraisals, you have VA appraisals, FHA appraisals. Since the 80s, they've had green appraisals on there. It's just that Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac didn't recognize it. They wouldn't recognize the adjustments. With the appraisers, we were like, we've got, you know, the next best thing. It's going to keep you guys busy, you know, because it differentiates you. You can't do ACE PDR. You can't do an appraisal waiver to be able to see what's happening beyond the drywall with the HERS scores. This is going to help, we were told, to save the appraisal industry. And we had to give it away for free because they wouldn't take it unless we were like, well, show us that there's demand. Show us that people want green appraisals, right? Is the market demanding it? And everyone here is testament that, yeah, the market is demanding it, and especially with COVID and indoor air quality and just new homes, that gap that used to be where a new home was more expensive than an existing home. Well, in a normal real estate market, new homes make up 10% of the sales. Right now, it's over 30%. So new homes are where all the inventory is currently, and that's where we had to educate the appraisers that this is really important. You know, this is where the industry is going, and as states adopt more, stringent energy codes, you want to prepare yourself to where everyone's going to be going to. So that was our messaging to the appraisers. So what is a green appraisal? So traditional appraisals with green features often lack the competency from appraisers to quantify value from the subject property. Actually, I'm going to defer this over to Ryan on this here because full disclosure, I'm not an appraiser. So when we wrote our appraisal training, we actually recruited the original appraisers who wrote the USPAP Advisory Board Council, who had been teaching about green appraisal since the late 1990s all the way through 2000s. And we leaned on them for their knowledge because it would hold a lot more credibility than a lender writing appraisal training. So go ahead, Ryan.
Okay, what is a green appraisal? Well, it's an appraiser uses the HERS score, or the annual energy savings, right, divided by the interest rate, annualized over the term of the loan, right? And that's how they're, making these adjustments. But it's, as Steve mentioned earlier, it's just a conventional loan. It's not a greenback mortgage. It's just a standard conventional appraisal done on, I'm speaking appraiser terms here now, on a URAR form. It's just your standard normal appraisal. We're just now seeing a line item adjustment for the efforts that builders like Dennis here with Fulton Homes is putting all this extra money into their home, and now they're getting the value for that. People like Beazer, who's leading the way in energy efficient homes. It's important that they get value for that. So you put in a pool into your home, and you compare it to the home, next door who's identical but doesn't have a pool. Which one should, cost more? Well, the one with the pool does. So if you're putting in all this extra money for energy efficiencies, then you should get value for it. And that's what a green appraisal is. And that's what we've been able to accomplish over the last 2 years in working with Steve and Dennis and Jim here.
Dennis, before all of this came to be at the beginning of the year with, after the International Builders Show, tell us a little bit about how it felt to put all these amazing benefits for all your clients and not getting the credit.
So for years, we were kind of pissed off.
It's not on. Here, switch mics. There you go.
For years, we were kind of pissed off because we didn't get the value of our homes that we thought we should get. And so maybe for 10, 15 years, we were always saying, even in EBA terms, we would, meet and say, we really should be getting higher value because we're building a much better home. And EBA has always been consisted of builders that were, building really the best homes in the country. And we thought it was not fair that the buyers didn't take advantage of that. There's no question that it costs more to do a high energy efficient home. Why wasn't the market rewarding that performance? And that just didn't seem quite right. So when I met these characters, they said, well, we can give you better, value. And I go, well, how's that going to work? And so they explained it to me, and I said, okay, well, let's expand this thing. And so, and I think we're at the kind of the early stages of this thing. I think it's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger, and more builders are understand it, more appraisers are understand it, and more lenders will understand it.
This is, I've spoken a couple times at the ResNet conference, at the International Builder Show conference, and the last time that I was there, they appointed me onto the education committee, and I was like, that's an interesting concept, is that a paid position? And they're like, no. And I'm like, fantastic. But we think it's important that builders should understand this, and so more than anything, this is the group right here that's leading the way, not the NAHB. This is the group that this should be resonating with the most, and so I feel honored to be here, honestly. Like, it was very humbling seeing the legends here yesterday speaking, and how much they've been over the past 40 years. It pained me to know that this is just happening this recently, because it almost seems common sense. Anybody who's ever bought in a car knows a Ferrari is much better than a Honda. It's just plain and simple. All of the people in this room, they actually would lift up the hood when they buy a car and see what's underneath the hood. And everybody else is just like, hey, it's got wheels and an engine, let's go ahead and, same price. And so that's what we've been having to overcome, is 40 years of ignorance about the strides that you guys have been making in the building sciences. And this is, I think, will help encourage you guys to take to the next step, to the next level. We had talked about earlier in the conference summit that there's all these subsidies, rebates, all these different things, dangle the carrot here and there. The framework has now been built. And what I mean by that is that the seller guidelines have been changed. We have a national footprint of HERS raters, that can give you energy scores. And we have appraisers who can now quantify those utility cost savings. And we're going to jump into an appraisal. We guys actually see actual appraisals today. So that's the beauty of this. You don't have to do anything different. We're doing close to almost 1,000 green appraisals a month. Jim, do you mind touching on that real quick, as far as Phil had mentioned about the problem number one is underwriting, appraisals, as far as getting value for this, and those headwinds that they've had to experience, and how you guys have been able to handle this over at FBC and Acrisure.
Sure. So until Freddie adopted the HERS scores, there really wasn't any recognition in our industry that would give us the advantage to sell a mortgage-backed security at a different rate or a different value. And there really still isn't. I mean, HUD and Fannie are way behind on this. There hasn't been a real tangible value to a mortgage-backed security until now. And it's really not the security that's more attractive. It's the fact that the appraisal is now recognizing the efficiency of the house. We've always known a client or owner is going to pay less per month with an energy efficient house. We just have never been able to quantify that. We'll actually count a debt that is a revolving debt on somebody that they could pay off now, and we won't count it in their ratios, but they could, day after closing, go run their credit back up. We actually don't count that debt, but we don't give credit to a savings that lasts forever in the house. And that's the issue we face with the agency. So Freddie's leading the way. I think Fannie and HUD will follow soon. I think this is cutting edge. This is going to become more apparent in the industry. But right now, we're seeing very few competitors accepting these appraisals. We're seeing very few builders taking us up on the offer to do a green appraisal. And I still find that difficult, but things change slowly in our industry.
This is very true. And I mean, when we were first, trying to reach out to the builders, they wanted to work with their lenders. And so that was the number one goal, is that builders have great relationships with their lenders. FBC Acrisure, they specialize in joint ventures, and they have a lot of partnerships. But we're not saying Acrisure is the only game in town. I mean, Cross Country, Loan Depot, UWM, a lot of smaller lenders that also do this. So it is being adopted. It's just that there's over 4,000 lenders. So if you have a lender that you're working with that you think that would like, instead of you helping them, them helping you, please have them reach out to us. We'd love to be able to work with them. So Ryan, I'm going to hand this off to you because this is your specialty.
Sure. It's a little bit difficult. If you've never seen an appraisal before, let's see. On the left side of the appraisal, there's 4 columns, right? You have an address in the upper left, and then a comparable 1 is the next one to it, and then the next one and the next one, comparable 2 and 3. So the one on the left, column 1 going down, is the subject property. The highlighted part is where the appraisers are making the annual energy savings adjustments. In this case, I can't even see it, excuse me. So we have an annual energy savings, a HERS score, of $1,907. And then comparable 1 has the same, right? It's a subject model match of $1,907. In this instance, the subject's not showing what the adjustment is because there is no adjustment because it's the same, right? It's like if the subject had a pool and then comparable 1 had a pool, there'd be no adjustment. Comparable 2, they had less annual energy savings of $1,318. After the appraiser did the math for the adjustment, it came for an $8,000 adjustment upwards. So it increased the value of the bottom ratio where it says 548. So it made that house more comparable to the subject, therefore the value went up. And then same thing with comparable 3, where the annual energy savings is $1,341 and has an $8,000 adjustment upwards. If you look at column 1, it says sales price towards the very top where the address is. It says $494,990. That's the contract price. The appraised value at the bottom left, the very, very, very bottom left, says $502,000. So this home came in, roughly $5,100 higher above the purchase contract because of the annual energy savings. And so we're seeing anywhere from 2.5% to about 4% higher of appraised values based off the annual energy savings from the appraisals that are being done. And it's resulting in either not missed contract prices or instant equity for the borrower because of it.
One of the things that's extremely important about these appraisals is that this is math. We can all understand math. You have black and white. There's no gray area. What is the actual definition of an appraisal? It's an opinion of value, right? So when an appraiser goes out and they give an opinion of value, it makes it very challenging, for the appraiser. We take that away from that because this is math. This is an actual economics formula. It's not an appraisal formula, it's an economics formula. And there's 4 different formulas that you can use to quantify the utility cost savings. We typically will ask them to do 2 to 3, and they'll usually take the most,
conservative adjustment, right? So they'll usually differ, nominally. Like if in this case, like if there was a $20,000 adjustment, out of the 4 formulas, one might say, 21,200, another one might say 20,000, another one might say, 19,700. And so the appraisers are leaning on the more conservative conclusion, which I think lenders, tend to like.
Absolutely. And something I want to make sure that we're very clear on, because Ryan mentioned it earlier about how the calculation and taking the utility cost savings by the interest rate, divided by the interest rate. We're not talking about like the interest rate on their loan specifically, because obviously we have forward commitments out there. There's seller concessions that would make all over the board, right? This is based on the...
on just the daily Freddie Mac's interest rate is at PPE, which you can find on their website. So at Accelerated, we've built out an integration with ResNet that allows our appraisers to pull that database of every HERS score that's been done. And so when appraisers go out to the property, they do their normal inspection, and they go back to the office to start writing their report. They log in to this website that now we've built that pulls the data from ResNet, and then it also auto-populates Freddie Mac's current interest rate, and that way there's consistency across the board from all appraisers nationwide for the subject property and the comparables.
And that's super critical because it's time-stamped for that day. So if anybody ever came back and said, well, where did you get this number? How did you come up with this exact figure? They're able to go back and pull up the data from that date. Well, this is the interest rate for Freddie Mac, pulled it off of their website, and so that way we can show consistency. And then obviously the HERS scores are done by a third party, not affiliated with the builder or with the appraiser. So it's actually safer in some ways because it's not an opinion of value anymore. It's actually solid math. So some results from some of the appraisals that we've been able to do. You can see we've done appraisals for KB, Meritage, Beazer. One thing about Beazer is that they have what's called mortgage choice. So they have, the client goes in, the borrower goes in, and they fill out a loan application. It goes to 6 different lenders. And so it makes it very challenging because getting 6 different lenders to all get green appraisers has been a little bit of a challenge, but they've been leaning more towards, hey, this is actually working really well. So we like the results that we're seeing from this. And I think that you guys will as well. If you guys I promise you, if you ask your lender, can I see one of our appraisals from one of our homes, you will not see that line item adjustment for the utility cost savings for the HERS scores on there. And that's really the eye-opening aha moment for builders is when they see that, they're actually getting credit. And so I'm excited for you, let's put it that way. It's been something I've had a lot of passion to build and been told multiple times by multiple lenders that I will die on that mountain. Was flown out to Detroit to UWM. Chief Innovation Officer of all names, Lee Jelinek, had me meet with Matt Ishbia, and they're like, yeah, we put 22 people on this for 2 years. They couldn't figure it out. Good luck with that. We wish you luck. And I'm like, I already did it. Like, you guys just do it. And they're just like, well, let's take a look at it, and they're going a million miles per hour. And I'm like, all right, well, let's go and talk over here. And Dennis, how long did it take once you decided to make the move? What were the steps? How much extra heavy lifting was it for you as a builder to be able to get the green appraisals added?
I don't know, about a minute. So I went over the numbers with kind of our top management at Fulton Homes, and that's great. Let's move in that direction. So then I called FBC or Acrisure at the time. It was FBC, and said, hey, can you guys help us with this? And I talked to them and everything, and they were really quick. They knocked everything out in about 2 days, and all of a sudden they had a nationwide program just like that. It was so quick. And I'm going, pretty good, So
It's an easy answer to say yes to.
well, I guess,
Yes, we do want you.
Yeah, we want that, yeah. So, and they were relatively a new lender for us. We have a program where we have 3 preferred lenders, and they all compete for the business. So we think the buyer wins when that happens. Many of the other builders just have 1 lender, and so, and they have outside lenders, and usually their incentive is tied into using their inside lenders and things like that. So we were pretty happy that we had 3 lenders, and they were cooperating, and it was a real easy deal. And, so the things started coming in and everything, and it was just a very quick thing. It was a pleasure.
Yeah. And Dennis touched on this, that it took 48 hours to get the AMC added, because they were like, there's appraisers all over the nation. We can train appraisers. That's what our job is, to train appraisers. But to train 40,000 appraisers could take a little while, right? So you can simply just add an AMC. There's multiple AMCs out there that have it, but I'm just saying that it took 48 hours. 48 hours?
Yeah, it was pretty quick.
Yeah, it's so if you're wondering if your lender can do this, yes, they can do it, and they can do it very quickly. And when I'm speaking at other engagements, it's like, are you getting HERS scores? That's always like one of the heavy lifts for builders that aren't getting HERS scores. Freddie Mac in their guidelines state you have to have it below a 60. So you're not going to get the adjustment if you're over 60 on your HERS scores. Trying to work with Ecotrope. I'm not sure if Sai's in the room here, but I had Ziv on my last panel at ResNet. And in real time, most of the builders use that as a modeling system, Ecotrope, and want to build out a tab that if you put in better R-value insulation or better windows, that you could see in real time, like your HERS score drops from a 53 down to a 37, what you'd be able to see we have enough data points now is what I'm trying to say, to be able to quantify that on your appraisals. You'd be able to see the return on investment to see if it makes sense. They have other things that they have in front of this program, but if you guys keep poking them, saying we see value in this, it will get there. That's just another one of the things on my checklist of how can I make your guys' job easier? How can I make it easier for the raters out there to show value? And that this helps lenders have more clarity, because with HERS scores, like I was saying, the lower the score, everyone understands that. We all play golf or try to. And the lower the score, they can see that a 60 HERS score versus a 30 HERS score versus net zero, they're going to have bigger returns on that line item adjustment. So this here is the same slide without the bar graphs, just so you can kind of see percentages. And you can see there's correlation between the HERS scores, but we don't want you to get necessarily caught up on the HERS scores, only from the standpoint, it's easier for everyone to see it, but it's the utility cost savings. So a HERS score, Ryan, do you want to take this one here on like a 5,000 square foot house versus a 1,500 square foot house?
Yeah, so I mean, everyone knows, you could have a similar HERS score, but different annual energy savings based on, I suppose, the size of the home. And so, although we talk about HERS ratings to make an adjustment, it's really the annual energy savings, which that's how you quantify the adjustment.
So if you are building more custom, if you're building, essentially you're looking at the annual utility cost savings. That's the most important thing. And so if you have a chance, go over to the billboards over by the registration desk and you'll see the houses, beautiful homes. We like to geek out on the annual, utility cost savings. And when we were at the Energy Conservatory event last night, they had a home that was saving $7,000 per year. And I mean, that's phenomenal. You know what I'm saying? Because that is going to be now addressed on their appraisal. And it's exciting for us to be able to share those wins. Now, as a builder, what you decide to do with the higher appraisal values, we recently did an appraisal, or Ryan did an appraisal, for Beazer in Arvin, Texas. And this is where the magic happens, really. I mean, is on a new home community. The very first house that sets all of your comparables for the rest of your community. Ryan, where did that appraisal come in when there's no other like homes around it?
The adjustment was I think it was 27,000 for their home, and because now it's come in above the purchase contract, that comparable, or that sale now becomes the comparable moving forward. And so what the builder decides to do with that, whether they raise their values to cover the cost of the money that they've put into the homes for energy efficiencies, use it for, I suppose they could use it for buy downs, for interest rates, or just straight give it to the buyer, for equity, instant equity in the home, and just, supporting the buyer, right? We build energy efficient homes, we build safe homes, and not only that, but you're buying a home that already has equity in it.
Yeah, and that was one of the first things, a lot of builders that we were working with, they were a little bit hesitant because you don't want to base your seller concessions off of a hope that your appraisals will come in higher. So they didn't do anything. They just let the appraisals come in higher. And then when they were sharing that with the customer, the lender calls them and says, whoa, your appraisal just came in, $20,000 higher. All of a sudden, all those fears that, did I buy at the right time? Should I have waited for interest rates to go down? Should I have gotten, just something that I could do, some sweat equity? All of those fears just go away, just evaporate. I just walked into instant equity. It's like what everybody dreams of when they buy a home, right? Is that they get a home they can, that's healthy, that they can, have their family live in and make great memories, but also that it's an investment, because they're always told by everybody else, you want to you build equity in a home, you can then move up. And I know that, just out of curiosity, how many lenders are in the room? Raise the hands of lenders. Do you see the problem here? You guys are doing an amazing job of building these amazing homes, but there are no lenders here to share it with what's happening. There are no appraisers here to share this amazing news with, right? What the lenders don't realize over the last 3 years when rates have been elevated, not one of those homes got a green appraisal. They're all sitting on 2 to 5% higher appraisal values. Think about that. Like to be able to go in, like you could create your own refinance boom. It's amazing, right? Because if you've got a green appraisal, you could get rid of PMI faster. You could get a lower interest rate because you have more equity in the home. We're talking about saving people thousands upon thousands of dollars because they bought your home. They made a good investment, and your homes are appraising for more. And you can simply go back to them and just say, hey, this is great, and like you guys are going to have the opportunity to get a higher appraisal now because the seller guidelines weren't there when you guys bought your home, right? So there's, if they wonder why you guys, hey, you had us work with your in-house lender, how come we didn't get this then? Well, the seller guidelines just got changed, so this is all new. But for a lender, when they're like pushing back on you, like, oh, we don't know about this, we don't want to, like, sounds complicated. You check a box, green appraisal. You check a box, okay? You include the HERS score for the appraiser, which they can get like online, you know what I'm saying? Like it's not hard. So we want to make this as simple and easy as possible. No extra heavy lifting. You guys are already doing the hard part. We're gonna go here to the top 10 energy efficient builders, nationally ranked in 2023. Only 30% of homes are getting energy scores right now. I think that as this gains traction, I applaud you guys because without the end customer realizing that there's Ferraris out there, I liken it to you go to a car lot and all the cars on the lot are for sale for $5,000. Have any car for $5,000. But you guys, because we have no lenders and appraisers here, the Ferraris are in the back behind that they can't see. We need to bring them around and show them that there are better homes that they can qualify for and get. And the only way we're going to get there is by echoing this message that this is available. The appraisers are trained. The HERS raters have national coverage. Everything's in place. The framework is there. So whether they give us more incentives, more rebates, this is here to stay. And so we're excited to be able to have gotten to this point. Been working on this for 3 years as a passion project. Ryan's been integral. Dennis has been phenomenal. Acrisure has been a great partner, so I appreciate you guys being along with this journey. Going to give Jim just a second here. Why have you taken, why has Acrisure taken this position of being so builder-centric and builder-focused?
So I mentioned before, we are primarily focused, most of our business, about 80%, in the new construction world. We're very comfortable with that. We understand that business really well. It's not that we don't want the realtor business. It's just over the last 5 to 7 years, you mentioned it before, the growth in the industry has been on new construction, which we followed that growth. From a standpoint of accepting, I look at my competitors who do or do not accept green appraisals, and it's a risk to a lender. We have to sell a loan to a secondary market, and you're always taking the risk that the appraisal or any part of that underwriting could be questioned. You have to repurchase it. So going into something new in the industry, which we believe is the future of the industry. We see all houses, whether somebody's as diligent as a Beazer or Fulton in energy efficiency or just building with new components, they understand it. I do think that's where the industry is going. We took the risk early on, and we have no problem selling our loans. And whether I say that to the other lenders out there, I'm happy you pointed out nobody else was here today, but we are, we're not the only lender out there, but there are very few that are taking the risk in this area, and probably until Fannie and HUD adopt their changes will we see the rest of the industry join. But in the meantime, we're very comfortable with this. I sell this to builders I meet with all the time, and most aren't aware of the ability to get the appraised value in their house. So let's all keep spreading that news as much as we can.
I want to touch on something because he mentions the word risk, and that's always in the back of everyone's mind. You guys took risk by deciding to build energy efficient homes. When an appraisal goes to the lender, they go through a process called collateral underwrite. And so collateral underwrite flags it. If there's anything that looks a little, go ahead and explain it. I'll let you take it from here.
Sure. So as an AMC, lenders have us submit to Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac through UCDP. And what it does is this automated process that reads the appraisal and assesses it for risk based off of other appraisals in the marketplace around the subject property, even past appraisals that have been done on the property itself. And so it's this huge algorithm, AI, that assesses the risk on the loan based off the appraised value or the adjustments in the appraised value. So, you know, 1 is phenomenal, 5 is very high risk, and they won't even fund on a 5, right? And so we would have to go back to the appraiser and have them make adjustments or have better explanation as to why it was such a high risk appraisal. So when we were working with Freddie Mac back in, oh my goodness, maybe March of this year, they had not seen one of these appraisals go through UCDP. And so we ran a test one through, and it came back with a 1.5 risk score. And so consistently now, you know, we're operating, you know, daily with these green appraisals. We're still, you know, at that 1.5 to 2 range with, you know, very low risk. And Jim, at that point, if you wanted to dive in a little bit on that, is that a good score? And
Great score. And, you know, we're always at risk to repurchase based off of a secondary review. We understand new construction. We were comfortable with this. And the lenders that are out there accepting these are doing the same. They're taking that risk because this is new. This is cutting edge. But we have not had any repurchase requests. We think the clients who understand this, you had mentioned the potential to refinance sooner. And as rates do come down, it's nice to know you walk into a house with extra equity, 5, 10, 15,000 in equity that will be realized again when we refinance their house, and it would help them get to a lower LTV, maybe eliminate mortgage insurance and so forth. So, I mean, the consumer benefits are there. We just have to sell it. We got to continue to sell it.
And before Freddie Mac made the seller guidelines changes, they obviously did their due diligence. They did a study on 76,000 homes, not a small, you know, set, 76,000 green homes, energy efficient homes specifically. And what they found was that they had lower foreclosure rates by almost double digits compared to a regular home. Now, I know that we're not all rocket scientists like Joe, but I mean, if your utility costs are 60% lower, and if you think about it, for most people out there, you have your mortgage, that's their highest cost per month as far as like outgoing. Then you've got your car payment, maybe student loans or whatever, but your utilities on your home, those are actually, you know, probably maybe third or fourth. So if you're paying 60% lower, well, then you have more expendable cash to not go be using credit cards right now. You be using your debit card. So obviously you're gonna have lower foreclosure rates. So this is actually, when this all shakes out, these are gonna be actually a premium loan product for servicers and providers, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, to be purchasing these because they have lower foreclosure rates, especially if the builder's using them for seller concessions. You know, if you go into foreclosure on one of these homes and your utility bill was $100 versus $600, no, you did something wrong. Like, it wasn't because of the loan. It was because you lost your job. You know, this is a benefit. This is what I always tell everybody. Very, very rarely in this world does it work, and is it a win for everyone. And what I mean by a win for everyone, the builder gets to build, you guys get credit for building a better built home, right? The home is going to appraise for more. What you do with that, whether you want to make a little bit, you know, like cover some of your costs or whatever, the real estate team and the loan officer team, they get paid on the volume, on the sale price, right? So they're getting a win. But the most important person, the end consumer, is getting a better built home with better indoor quality, health, with a lower monthly payment, like a lower cost as far as like with the utility. Everyone wins, no one loses. So I'm really happy to be able to have this opportunity to share with everybody, and that's why I wanted to give about 15 minutes here for questions and answers. But just real quick, key takeaways, you know, the lender guidelines have been changed. The framework's in place. Green appraisals, you know, we can provide education. We already have coverage nationwide. You know, with the 45L sunsetting, before it was so hard to talk to builders. Like, honestly, like you can talk to, like, you know, somewhere along the chain, someone doesn't return a call, and then the whole entire thing dies when you work with builders. You know, you have to get to the decision maker, where it's actually affecting their bottom line, and they have to actually take the time. Because the 45L tax, you know, credit sunsetting, builders have been a lot more open to talk. And so I don't consider it a good thing that that's going away, but people are actually listening. They're like actually more open to this. And the great part is the timing is, this is better than $2,500 or $5,000. This is a percentage of your actual sale that this is your hard work being reflected. You know, this is not, this is phenomenal for you guys. And then obviously you guys increase profit margin and move sitting inventory. You know, if you have anything that's sitting there, to be able to offer those seller concessions and be able to cover it and not have to worry about lower appraisals. I went out to visit with KB Homes in Sacramento. Joe Nam is the president out there, and he said if we can just simply not have our light appraisals, they had 3 light appraisals just come in the week previously, $30,000 that they had to eat. Just simply if it just came in at value. I mean that's pretty sad. You know, KB's not a custom, they're not building really super energy efficient, but they're building energy efficient, right? They're doing a good job. But yeah, they just, if they didn't have light appraisals, that was a big win for them. So what questions do we have out there? Because we usually get peppered at this point. Anybody? Well, Wright had touched on this previously. If you have, like for simplicity's sake, the Arbin home for Beazer, the appraisal comes in higher, and you have $22,000 to work with as for your comparables. You could offer seller concessions to help buy the rates down. I'm not talking about temporary buy downs. Temporary buy downs, the first-time home buyers still have to qualify on the actual, real rate, not the lower temporary rate. But you can actually get a lower interest rate, and we actually are talking about that as well. We'll get to that another session, but it's soon to come that we're going to be able to help with that. Freddie Mac is running a test pilot program in 38 states where if you buy an energy efficient home, if your debt to income ratio is 45, you'll get about a 4% decrease for buying an energy efficient home because they are taking the utility cost savings into account. And so that's going to be a huge win because we're tackling it from both sides. They will be able to have more buying power because your utility costs are lower, so they'll be able to qualify for your homes. And then on the other side, you guys have the ability to offer seller concessions possibly if you want, or a combination of both, make more profits and do seller concessions to make the interest rate lower. So that's a great question, but that was the overall goal, is helping the affordability issue, and more than anything, you guys having your appraisals not coming in light for all the benefits and stuff that you guys are putting in the home. Sorry, reading the teleprompter. Any other questions? What other questions do we have out there? Oh, one thing real quick before I touch on that, because this is one of the builders somebody always asks this question real quick. We don't get our HERS scores until after the Energy Star appliances are put into the home, and then you have the occupancy affidavit, and then so we sell the home previously, and the appraiser comes out there, and there's no HERS score on the home. So if you are building like model homes, if you have a HERS score, we can do the appraisal on dirt. So if it's the same model and it already has a HERS score, we can use that HERS score for the home that you are building on dirt. So it doesn't cost you any time, because that's always like a big thing, is like time is money. We want to make sure that we're not slowing down your guys' process.
I mean, it's a little bit past dirt. The appraiser needs, a home to measure. But still early on in the stage, for sure. As long as, like for instance, when we were looking at that appraisal, we had the subject, and then comparable one was a subject model match. It's going to produce a very, very similar annual energy savings, and so the appraiser can use that for the data, and then they just note that in the appraisal.
Fantastic. Go ahead. It's not working.
Energy Star, zero energy ready builder, and I have problems with appraisals all the time, and I fill out the IRS form for green and energy efficient, itemize. I've even attached invoices of the difference of installation, whatever. I recently had a appraiser just hand it back to me. He goes, I don't use that. And our area is very antiquated, old school. I basically told my bank, if you send another appraisal to this appraiser, I'm never using you again, because he said to me, his brother's a builder, and he said, my brother builds houses for this price per square foot. I said, I'm not your builder, I'm not your brother. And I found several discrepancies on the appraisal, square footage. There was a tile shower, they put it down as fiberglass. We know that's a $10,000, $12,000 difference. It's just like, why do we have to fight this? How can I educate people in my area? And most of my loan officers are great people, but they don't even want to take on that fight. It is a fight. I don't know. I mean, it's, you know, so what I do now is when I send the contract over, I don't send the plans or the specs. I have the appraiser call me, and then I try to even meet with him at times or talk to him on the phone and tell them the differences. There are a few that do very well and help us, and the appraisal comes in just fine. But I had one recently. I have a 55-plus community, same model. One was across the street, one was on the other side. $120,000 difference in appraisals. This shouldn't happen in this industry. So any advice?
Yeah, it really comes down to partnering with, you know, the right people who understand this process. You know, we've clearly stated the biggest problem, or the consistent question that's been asked probably up on this stage, is how do we bring value to your guys' efforts? And it's through appraisals. But as far as I understand, you know, we're one of the only appraisal management companies in the country who've tackled this. And so adoption is, you know, far and few between. Now, we do have trained green appraisers in every state. But, you know, to your point, it started, you know, with the lender ordering the appraisal. You know, that's where the problem started. You didn't have, you know, somebody who was educated or understood that what this home or that these homes that you're building, you know, required, or that there was value there. And so then they send it out to an appraiser, and most of the time, even if they were to check the box green appraisal, you know, they took some course from, you know, McKissick that tells you, you know, what's green, but even then it's not educating the appraiser on how to make these adjustments. And so we've built a team, you know, to educate and train and then oversee this process of getting these green appraisals. You know, so we'll get these appraisals in, and then they're reviewed to make sure that you know, these energy efficiency items are given the credit that they deserve. And so it's a full process that we go through, and from what I understand, you know, no one else is really doing it.
I got a question, and that would be, what can we do as an industry to make sure we have consistent appraisals that get the full maximum amount of scores in order to make the appraiser better, make the appraisal better?
That's a great question, and I think it's kind of stems from what I just said too. It's oversight, right? And so we'll have appraisers that say, "Oh yeah, I'm green trained," you know, but they're not. They just understand, like, oh,
they're
yeah,
imposters.
They're imposters. You know, they go, "Oh yeah, the home has solar," you know, and that's what they recognize. They may see Energy Star, but they don't understand it. There's been a lot of education on our part with the appraisers that we've trained to bring them up to speed and understand these adjustments to make sure that they're doing it right. So even though we'll send a trained appraiser out there, you know, who's taken the course and says, "I understand it, I believe in it, and there's value there," you know, they still sometimes come back, you know, missing something. And so that's when it comes, you know, to our company to review it and to make sure everything's done right, and then to explain it to the appraiser, "Hey, this is what you're missing." And that's like a second part to it in order to, you know, have a successful green appraisal.
Funny story, because when I was flown out to UWM, I met with their head of underwriting, who had been there for over 20 years. And she was like, "Where are you from?" I'm like, "I'm from Seattle." And she's like, "Oh, well, you can't do green appraisals out in Seattle. You guys don't have solar." And I was just like, "Oh, this is going to be so much harder than I thought." Like, I thought like an underwriter, that they would get it, like, but the mentality of the lending industry, like, all they know is solar. They don't know about energy scores. They don't know about anything else other than solar. So it's just a PV calculator. And so that's why from the start to the end, it's all about education. It's educating our lenders. It's educating our real estate teams who are out marketing our homes. It's educating the end buyer, about how much better your homes are built than the just status quo. So I hope next year when we have this, when I ask how many lenders there are here, that you guys will bring a few of them, Let them learn about how much better your homes are being built, because it's one thing telling them, and it's another one seeing them and the passion that you had in your voice. That's what I heard 3 years ago from my builder, who was just so frustrated and just had pulled their hair out because they'd been getting so many low appraisals over and over and over, that it became a race to the bottom. Because if they knew the appraisal was going to come in low, they didn't want to eat that loss. So then where do I cut costs? Where do I shave off things? And all of a sudden, before you know it, we're back to a spec home. So I'm just letting you know, like, that you guys, whether you bring your appraisers out here, that would be great. But at the end of the day, the framework is in place, and we can move forward, right now. Anybody else have a question?
Steve, you don't have to bring too many lenders, just a
Not
few.
too many lenders.
I will answer one question, because as a lender, I was at an industry event last week and talked to a major appraisal management company, a guy who owns it on the East Coast. And I asked him about what they're doing in the green appraisal world. And his answer was, well, there's no real adjustment we can give for it. And I'm just shaking my head, knowing that Accelerated does such a great job. There is knowledge out there, there's recognition, but even a major appraisal management company was not aware of what Freddie allows for the adjustments. And so there's a knowledge and an awareness out there. I would interview your lender, or at least ask how they recognize the energy efficiency in the house. Can they do an appraisal? I ask those specific questions, because every lender is going to say, sure, we're a green lender, because they want your business, but there's nothing really tangible like an appraisal that they can accept. And most are still behind the curve in accepting these.
Yeah. You need all three pieces, otherwise it falls on its face. You have to have the lender and the appraiser. Had a question in the back there?
Yeah, I do have a question actually about that. Like, what kind of regulatory or audit risks would we face if the valuations are consistently coming in and outpace traditional comps? So I think that, as you're looking at integrated lenders, I think that's, what is the risk if you're outpacing?
So the question is what is the regulatory risk if you're outpacing, I guess, your traditional appraisals? I think, Jim, you should probably touch on that.
I mean, our risk is we accept an appraisal with a higher value than where somebody's going to review this at a later point, and we're subject to repurchasing that house or paying the difference. So as a lender, we run that risk on every loan we do. We have calculated risks in our business. You just have to be knowledgeable of what is, you have the ability to sell, and we have the ability to stand behind it. And once Freddie made the changes to their acceptance, they're even not very clear. They're not crystal clear on purchasing these. There's still risk to the lender to say there's an interpretation that we can use the green value. We take that risk. We haven't had any repurchase requests. So, but we couldn't sell that same loan to Fannie. They would not allow us to have used the appraised value that we closed with. So I mean, that's a risk. Is there regulatory? Yes, you mentioned the scoring that every appraisal goes through. That does impact whether a lender will accept an appraisal or not.
Hey, Isaac Scott with Claire Homes out of Lafayette, Louisiana. We build all of our homes to the fortified roof standard, and I was wondering if you guys were familiar with that standard and if there's any kind of adjustment that can be made on the appraisal to take that into consideration.
So on the Freddie Mac seller guideline, they specifically refer to HERS scores, home energy rating scores. There's definitely coverage in Louisiana for the HERS scores. as far as HERS raters. But I can't remember, somebody gave the statistic on how many different kind of rating scoring systems, Pearl and all the other, unless it's recognized by Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac, we can't utilize it. That was the hard part, is that heavy lift was to get them to recognize it, right? So I don't know if that answers your question, but I guess the short answer would be, it's hard enough to create the path we've got right now, just get a HERS score, and then we have the rest of it from there.
Well, I was just going to say we're out of time, but we'll be available afterwards for answering questions or concerns.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Greatly appreciate it.